Get away to a place we never been to. Seeing things we never seen, but you know we meant to. Living out our dreams, making scenes is a must. And you can't cheat the grind, so in the house, who do we trust?
Welcome to PJ Squared and Happy New Year's, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you watched the last holiday special and got to dive right into the first episode. Let me introduce myself again. My name is Phillip Jamal.
I'm Patrick Jerome.
And like I said earlier, hope you all had a happy New Year's. Didn't get too crazy or drink too much, even though if you did, that's quite fine, all right. This episode, we're going to focus it more so around new beginnings, goals, discovering your passions, and of course, the resolutions that everyone makes, but sometimes you just don't keep them. Isn't that right?
Well, I think that's part of the reason why I don't make resolutions anymore. I think the younger version of me made resolutions a lot, and you could sometimes, if you weren't really making realistic goals, as some people would say, you'd wind up halfway through the year, you'd realize that we came like, well, wait till next year. And so for me, I guess all those goals and resolutions, you get a little reflective at the end of the year, but you realize that some of the things that you're doing from a standpoint of personal and professional growth are an ongoing process. And so, those resolutions, I think it's something that you brought up that's a really good point, so continue.
So one of the things I like to tell people is that there's no better to start anything than today. One of the things that people fall victim to with resolutions is, for example, they might fall off the horse. Perfect example is the gym. People go to the gym January, February, by the time March hits, nobody's there. And then it's sad because people will be like, all right, well, I fell off, so I'm gonna wait till next week to get back on it. I'll wait till next month to get back on it. Then it's June, October, and then it's November. It's like, all right, it didn't work last time, so I'm gonna wait till the new year again and set the goal, and then I'm gonna do it. And it's like, well, if you want to change, just say it to yourself, I'm gonna change, whatever it may be, and just start. I know one of the hardest things out here is to just start anything, because when you're starting, that's typically the most difficult time. So whether it be playing an instrument, starting a career in an area that you're not an expert at, but you just have to start. I'm gonna be very personal with this episode because I get to talk about myself and my journey, if that's fine.
No, that's fine. Just before you continue, I think that word that you were talking about when people go on and on, it's called procrastination. And I know even when we first talked about starting up this podcast, we had hoped to probably have that first thing done, I think the November time from that Thanksgiving weekend. But things came up, and I think finally the two of us figured out, let's just get it done. And we realized that we had a lot to say. We had a lot to add. I know you have a lot of personal things you're going to share today. It's not going to be a downer, folks, just so you know. It's an uplifting type thing. It's just that, when you have a chance like we had over the holidays to kind of sit and relax and think about things, you do become reflective, but then you start looking forward, because what's done is done, what's in the past is in the past. And like Philip's going to talk about as he's talked about his journey, he'll probably share some things with the audience today that he may not even share with me, his mom, or even some of his closest friends. So with that, Philip, continue on.
All right. So I wasn't always so, charismatic, good with words, good with women, or even a scholar, to be quite honest. As I mentioned in the first episode, graduated from Virginia Tech spring 2016. Should have graduated about a year and a half before that, and that goes straight into my point of the journey. So my freshman year at Virginia Tech, I came to the school, was kind of unsure as far as my direction in life. I know I wanted to become an engineer. I love the challenge of it. I love the fact that it's problem solving, math, science. I love all that. I have so many different interests in that area. Pledged freshman year, I kind of just lost sight of a lot of different things. Started partying more, drinking more, talking to more ladies and whatnot. Believe it or not, I was actually an introvert in high school. People don't seem to believe me when I say that, but it was really honestly, I want to say, spring of 2014. I was taking a winter semester class, and I was really just at a pivotal time period. I tell people all the time I had my midlife crisis early in life, so I was really just honest with myself as far as what does Philip want to do with his life. Started praying on it, started just putting myself in the best possible mindset and just making sure that I'm happy, make sure I'm focused, and figuring out my why in life. Why am I doing anything? What's the main goal? And so one thing leads to another. I started learning more about obtaining mentors, learning about the law of attraction. For those that don't know about the law of attraction, it's definitely a subject that if you're not fluent on, you definitely should. It'll be to your best interest. I started reading more, started reading different subjects, and I really just started to just breaking down my own personality type and what are the situations that I thrive on, what are the situations that I don't particularly flourish at. But at the same time, you still have to work on your weaknesses, but at the same point, just better your strengths at the same time. So I started doing music. I tell people all the time, it really started when I think it's like summer 2013 possibly. Some friends and I, we were working at this catering company, and like on an off day, we went to the studio, and they were like, "All right, we're gonna make a song today." I was like, "All right, I'm not a rapper, but I'll do that." So we got in there, started writing up bars, and then we just went at it. And ever since then, I was like, man, I love making music, and that was pretty much the start of my music aspect of my life. As far as business goes, I realized quickly that one of the ways to be truly well off, at least financially, is either to invest. There's stocks, there's bonds, things like that. There's also real estate. But there's also businesses, because the way the tax laws are structured, at least in America, I'm being quite frank, business owners are in the best situation to reap the benefits of those laws. So really just started to think about ways I could just leverage myself and just push out to the world what is that I do well, and so that other people can benefit from the message that I'm portraying. And so just one venture after another, and here I am as far as business goes. And like I talked about earlier, starting anything new is difficult, but you still have to start somewhere.
Yeah. I just want to kind of interject in there because it was. I know that you talked about that pivotal time frame when you started making that revelation as to where your life was going to go. But do you recall that conversation? I think your mom always felt like you were a business person deep inside, and she'd even asked you at one point, had you ever thought about pursuing that business degree, that type portion? And you told her, I'm not leaving Virginia Tech without my engineering degree. Was it because you felt like if you didn't stay in the engineering field that you had not accomplished one of your goals because as you started going through college, once you had a chance and had gotten a lot of business degrees behind you, not business, but engineering things behind you, and had gotten a green engineering minor in place, that entrepreneurship, I think that first class really was something that you just flourished under. and took off from there. So could you talk about that in the standpoint of the mission, or rather the focus of your aspirations now?
Oh, definitely. I actually remember that conversation quite well. I was frustrated back then. I came to tech. I was gonna get this engineering degree. Um, I made a point. I made that was a goal. I wrote that down on the board. I looked at it every day. I said, I'm getting this degree, material science engineering, and it was more so because I said I was gonna do it. And that's the thing with goals. You have to stand behind them because it's hard. Times get hard, but you have to be steadfast and keep the focused on what it is that you want to obtain. And so I knew the main goal was the engineering degree, but then I started picking up a minor, as my father said. So I picked up 2 minors. One was in green engineering because I'm a big advocate on recycling and realizing that we have one Earth that we live on, and so you have to do your part to make it last as long as possible. But the second one that I was fortunate enough to add was entrepreneurship, new venture growth. And so with that, I started learning about businesses and some of the ways that people can just leverage their own talents to be really effective in the business world. So I feel like it was definitely a blessing in disguise. So that victory lap actually led me to the way of victory in the end, I would say.
And so, you mentioned about, I guess, those kind of turning point, that 2014 again. I'm going to go back to that one. But as you were going through, Phillip, did you find that you had to rely on yourself as far as that self-motivation or being reflective, or were there a small, I guess a finite group of people, small group that you could kind of rely on to kind of share the struggle with you? Because I know for me, I am pretty much an introvert or a private person that works in a public world. But I keep a lot of things to myself that I'll share sometimes with your mom or even with you and Todd, my brother in particular, sister, to a certain extent. But how did you basically break that ice and basically find out this is kind of where I want to go at when you were getting ready to open up your wings?
Well, the biggest thing that I end up reading, I think I read it somewhere, I might have saw it in a YouTube video, might have been a motivational YouTube video, I'm not sure. But it talks about how growth is uncomfortable because you're going through something you haven't actually experienced before, so it's going to cause some discomfort. But once you're able to get past that, that's when you can start to really flourish, and that's when you can start to really grow and challenge the heights and the limits that you previously thought were unattainable. And so one of the things that I personally did was just keep my support group around me, the bros, keep myself motivated. I know I had like my personal dream board that a lot of people are advocates for. I mean, it worked for me, honestly. Just looking at that every day, just really envisioning myself and where I wanted to go, and then just having brothers around me staying there for me and keeping me accountable for what I was trying to do. Because when you tell somebody what you're going to do, they're going to hold you to that one way or another.
Yeah. And so you talked about that group that you relied on, kind of, you had that dream board. It seems that, and this is something others could probably rely on, is that you seem like you deliberately kept that group small. I'd probably say, just based on who I hear you communicating with when you talk online or on the phone or texting, it's probably maybe more than 5, but less than 10.
Yeah, something around there. It's not intentional, honestly. It's just when you're very focused on your goals, there's going to be fewer people that can truly identify you identify with you and your focus in life. So it's like I am my brother's keeper, and together we shall rise. So you got to keep that philosophy. Know that everybody doesn't have your best intentions at heart. So when you find a group of people that really have that, you have to definitely stick with them and respect and pay that loyalty.
Yeah. I remember there was the book that I know when you went to that first kind of summer session at Tech, and the name is escaping me right now, but it focused on, I guess, 3 African American males and kind of their journey to basically stick together and uplift each other and pull each other forward so that they could become successful. It might be one of my senior moments, but the name of the book is escaping me right now.
The book's called The Pact. I'm not sure the author's name, but it's definitely a great book if you're looking for a book recommendation.
Yeah, so folks that are out there, if you don't believe us, just do a Google on The Pact and it'll pop up and you'll see the book that we're talking about. Because I know that you do a whole bunch of I call it reading from a standpoint of personal growth, spiritual growth, professional growth, and I think that's key, because I think your mom and I think I used to try to do that, and then sometimes your, quote, profession or your job can take that away, but I think it is important to become very well read and very well versed in things, because it does give you, and it will give you, that upper hand as you're continuing on in your business journey, because you're having to read and research and read some more in order to basically uncover the things that are going to help you with your successful, entrepreneurship. So talk to me kind of about your vision for what you want to do, because I know that, you basically got an LLC. Yeah, and so continue on with something and talk about that some.
As far as my grand vision on myself, I'm more so an advocate that you should do the thing that you're passionate about in life. So, like I talk about, whether it's just you want to open up your own restaurant or you wanted to work with dogs the rest of your life, do what it is that you're passionate about and you won't have to work a day in your life. My mother speaks about that quite often. As far as myself goes, I have so many different interests that I really can't even pinpoint a solid direction right now. But like I talked about earlier, they involve business, they talk about music, and just a few different things.
So you're like a modern Renaissance man.
I'm a Renaissance man in every sense of the word.
Okay, that's good. Okay. And so do you have an ultimate goal right now as far as where you see yourself, say, in 5 years, short term? And that's what I call the short term.
5 years, I'm most likely going to have a few businesses to my name. See where the music industry takes me. And living just the lifestyle, it's because not to be superficial or anything like that, but it's nice to have nice things. But to get to that point, you have to put the work in, and if you don't, it will show. So whether it's in sports or in business, you have to be well versed, like my father was saying, because the hard work will pay off. What you do in the dark eventually comes to the light in one way or another.
Yeah, okay. And I think you mentioned about hard work, but I think in your case, it's the famous adage of working smart. Because you may be working hard, but I think the key thing is that you're trying to work smart with your time as you're going forward. And I know I'm reading one of the books that we're reading in my school division, a book called Mindset by a lady named Carol S. Dweck. And it talks about how it applies to parenting and business and schools and relationships. But they talk about those fixed mindsets of people that really, don't think outside the box, I guess that's putting it simply. But that open mindset that people have, that I call that positive, that when others are saying they can't, they're thinking that they can. And so I think with that, you're part of that open mindset, because you're looking at all the possibilities were from the standpoint of many, particularly, I guess, with adults, when they say, hey, you work, you get a profession, and you do that, you take the safe and the true route, you're looking at that kind of cutting edge.
A perfect personality that embodies the positive energies and just keeping out all the negatives is DJ Khaled. We the best. He talks about if you follow his snaps, and he talks about they a lot, and it's very symbolic because they will say a lot of things. They will say you're too short, you're too fat, you can't do this, you can't do that. But they is only just going to bring you down. You have to figure out what it is that you like, what it is that makes you happy, and just do that. Surround yourself with the people that will uplift you, because it will leave you in the best feeling at all times. And also, a shout out to RDC World 1. Brothers making some funny videos, had to shout them out. But their recent episode, they had one called Black People in Anime, where it's funny because they basically talk about how black people don't watch anime, and but then they break it down and say that black people watch Dragon Ball Z, yada yada, which is also anime.
Okay. So let me pause you here, because when you start talking about the DJ Khaled, well, this is we talked about in our first episode, those generational type things. When you said DJ Khaled, I have no idea. Khaled, no idea who he is. But when he talks about that term they, or that term they is used by even folks in my generation, as far as the baby boom, as far as the famous term they is that group of unknown that people can never talk about, that will keep it from moving forward, because they is the nameless entity that can get you in trouble, because when you say they, they will pull you down. And then but you mentioned about the anime. Explain, you might want to talk, this is once again, to break down what anime is.
Anime is simply cartoons made in Japan.
Cartoons made in Japan. So they could call them Japanese cartoons, but they aren't.
Basically.
Okay, so it's layman's term, Japanese cartoons.
It's such a stigma that comes with it that people don't even want to watch it. But if you get deeper into it, like they talk about in RDC1, there's so much story, there's so many life lessons that they teach you. And it's actually cool because they got a lot of action that's going on in those. But basically, you have to learn how to step out of your own status quo and to build up yourself how you want to. Like, the world may see you as one thing, but if you see yourself another way, then that's just what it is. People will either live with it, or they can keep it moving.
Okay. So in other words, I find it interesting because it does come down to basically people understanding what their passions are, what their goals in life are, and not basically, I find it all the time where people be miserable doing something, and you wonder, why are you going to continue to do this if you're miserable? Because if you can't get up and think, this is just the greatest thing I'm doing. And I will say again about your mother, she gets up, and when she's talked to her people sometimes, town hall meetings that she would do when she was at White Sands, New Mexico, or at Detroit, Michigan, at where she worked there, or even now, when she'll ask people, how you feeling? And her thing is, she gets up every day and talks about being a 10. And it was amazing when she'd go and people in the job, and the number of people that sometimes didn't have a 5 or a 6 to say they were at, and that's not a good situation. It could have been different things, but you want to make sure that you're doing something, because if it's something that's your profession, you really want to keep focused on that and do the best and do something you're enjoying.
Okay. So, hopefully this finds all you all starting off the new year on high terms and the best mindset possible. And like we talked about at the very beginning, focus on your goals, discover your passions, and realize if you set your mind to anything, you can make it happen. And with that,
Happy New Year to you. I'm the King.
I'm the Prince. DJ Squared.
Look, I'm looking back at my past and I can tell I'm now a better me. But the life I once lived and carry a bunch of sympathy. I used to sit around indoors all alone in the quiet